On today's show, the Capitals had a big weekend as they downed the Buffalo Sabres, and what is behind their success? I'll discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called the Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how your Capitals continue to keep rolling as they pick up a big win over the Buffalo Sabres over the weekend. And I think it was important that the Capitals didn't fall into what they call a trap game. I think that would have been an easy thing, as, let's be honest here, that Buffalo Sabres team kind of really threw it at the Capitals at certain points of the game. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll talk about what is behind the success of this year's Capitals team. Markedly better over last year or the season before. I'll get into that a little bit later. I'll talk about what lies ahead. The Capitals are playing really well right now. Imagine how great they'll be playing when Alex Ovechkin is back in the lineup. But just to get it going here, talking about the Capitals and their successful game with the Buffalo Sabres. And again, Tom Wilson said that it's easy to fall into trap games, but he said, if you're asking me, I didn't even know what kind of record Buffalo had. I didn't know that they had lost a bunch of games. And I think that to value your opponent is a big thing. And I think the Capitals did that. And it ultimately showed the pushback that this year's team has, that Buffalo got on the board first, but this Capitals team had the answer. Just scrub all the old thoughts in your mind of previous seasons where if the Capitals didn't score first, the wheel really started to wobble and fell off. This team is built to overcome, and it is built to win. But just a really exciting game with a solid 4-2 victory over Buffalo. And we've got plenty to unpack about the standout performances from Tom Wilson and Dylan Strome. But first off, let's talk about Tom Wilson, a guy that has played huge in Alex Ovechkin's absence. Picking up 2 goals in that game, that he is really growing by leaps and bounds. And the leadership, it's all there. He has all the things that you're looking for in a captain, the leadership. He's helping to lead this team minus Alex Ovechkin, something that was kind of just thrust onto him. I understand that he's not wearing a C on his jersey, but I still think that he is the de facto captain of this team and just showing up where it matters the most on the scoreboard. So he's been wearing that protective bubble because of a broken sinus bone, but that didn't hold him back. And that was even the case in that game where he broke that bone, that he came into the game and then scored a couple goals. So there are no obstacles in front of Tom Wilson that are going to hold him back from competing at a top level. And one of the things that we saw earlier in the season is he wasn't scoring as many goals, and that was due in large part because he was on the line where they were feeding the puck to Connor McMichael. But now that he is kicking in, he has been just huge. His first goal was a beauty, deflecting a shot from John Carlson at the end of the first period. And his second came off a rebound from Jacob Chikrin. And that is one of the things I'm going to for this year's team. And you think the defenders would try to push the Capitals away, to the out. That's what you're supposed to do as a defender, push them away from the front of the net. It's just that the Capitals have a lot of big frames this year. I'm talking Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'm talking Alexei Protas, Tom Wilson, Alex Ovechkin when he's in there, those kind of players that if they can post up in front of the net and kind of just have the stick blade on the ice, that's what was really huge for the Capitals, not in just this last game against the Sabres, but here for a while, is just posting up in front of the netminder and just hoping for a rebound or hoping for a deflection. That has been an absolute game changer for this year's team. Now, over his last 9 games, he's notched an impressive 10 points. That's 7 goals and 3 assists. He's also leads the team in power play goals this season with 6. Talk about stepping up when the team really needs him. And hey, he signed that big contract. Tom Wilson is going to be on this team for a long time. And some people were questioning it's such a long-term deal. Why did they do it? It's quite apparent right now why it's the case. And it's interesting that he is not having to rely on his physicality so much anymore. I mean, he's still using his body to his advantage, but he's not dropping the mitts all the time. He's using his pure skill set. He's not worrying about being that tough guy so much anymore. And I think that has been absolutely huge for Tom Wilson this year. Next, we'll talk about Dylan Strome. Wow, what a season he's having. I was on Locked On NHL earlier, and they were asking me, what's behind the Capitals' success this year, Is there one place to point to? And I said, well, there's a few different directions you can go. Tom Wilson, Dylan Strome, the net minding. There is so many things in this pot of success for the Capitals this year. A lot of different ingredients. It's not like years before where it was Alex Ovechkin and maybe a pinch here and there of someone else. This team has scoring up and down the lineup, and we can't forget about Dylan Strome. He scored the game-winning goal expertly, redirecting a pass from John Carlson in the third period. Fist-pumping moment. You see it on the ice. You're probably doing it at home on the couch or maybe at the game. Very exciting. This win was crucial for the Capitals, especially with all the challenges they faced recently, including the injury woes. There was a bit of a scare with surrounding Rasmus Sandin, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this team rallying, it seems untouchable right now, doesn't it? And one of the things that Gil from Locked On asked me, he goes, what are some of the things that you're concerned about with this year's team? The biggest thing that has me concerned is injuries. But the thing that's unique about this year's team, like I've talked about, they're built to weather the storm. I mean, they lost their captain, the biggest piece on this team, and they have played very well in his absence. So that is still my biggest concern, is if injuries started to mount up. Other than that, I think this team is built pretty bulletproof. But talking about Rasmus Sandin, had a bit of a scare in the second period after colliding with Jordan Greenway. So it's part of the perils of playing hockey. It's a rough sport, but we're really happy that Rasmus Sandin is in a good position and didn't get injured, at least right now. I hope there's nothing lingering there, that he has been a key contributor on the blue line, but he needed some help getting off the ice, but thankfully returned for the third period to finish strong to down the Sabres. It's that kind of resilience that really makes a difference on the ice. But, this is kind of exemplifies what I'm talking about, is other notable contributions. Jacob Chychrun, who's been on a tear lately with a goal and 4 assists in his last 3 games. Let's lock him up long-term as a Capital. Let's get it done. And I know what I said earlier in the season, we don't want to be too much. Seeing is believing. I totally am buying into Jacob Chychrun's game. Has been an absolute game changer for this year's Capitals team. In addition to Connor McMichael, wow, if we take a look at it, I was taking a peek at the stats. I had the rough lay of the land, but just taking a look at the leaders in goal for goals for the Capitals, and it's quite stunning that this year's team, Alex Ovechkin, 15 goals, Connor McMichael, 15 goals. This kid is blowing up, and just at the right time. We've seen him in previous seasons be pretty good. But this year, he is a totally changed player, and just really exciting for me as a Capitals fan, because then I see what is he going to be like in following years when it's Leonard and Crystal. This team is just going to be completely bulletproof in my estimation. Excitement surrounds being a Capitals fan here. And John Carlson, who did I mention earlier that was, quite a few shots were deflected by shots from John Carlson. He racked up 3 primary assists in the game, showcasing why he's such a key player for this team. John Carlson, absolutely huge for the Capitals. So in a fun moment, Martin Feravari dropped the mitts with Dylan Cousins, and he landed only punches and came away with, a few punches and walked away with a takedown. Always good to see some energy on the ice. And hey, he was no one to mess with. He took care of Cousins in short order. It's like, there was a couple players involved in the mix there, but it ended up being Martin Feravari and Dylan Cousins. But the one thing that was very apparent to me in a similar weight class, relatively speaking, is Martin Feravari can hold his own, and I think I wouldn't want to mess with that guy. So looking ahead now, the Capitals are set to clash with the Dallas Stars on Monday. It's going to be a different game, of course, against the Sabres, as Dallas has a lot of scoring power as well. The Capitals are riding high, though, in an impressive 10-game road winning streak. And if they can pull off another victory, they'll tie the NHL record for consecutive wins. The stakes are high now for the Capitals, especially with the potential record on the line in Chicago following that. So a great time to be a Capitals fan, a record-breaking season. And I don't want any of this before I transition to a different segment here, that Spencer Carberry deserves a tremendous amount of credit for what the Capitals are accomplishing this year. Just a really positive guy, a guy that expects a lot from his players. If you want to talk about the perfect coach for a team, Spencer Carberry is the absolute perfect coach for this team. You see the struggles with the New York Rangers and Peter Laviolette. How refreshing is it to have a coach like Spencer Carberry behind the bench? I'm loving it. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll break down ultimately what is behind the Capitals' hot streak. I'll discuss next. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better, and it's the perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And that is one of the frustrating things that I face. My favorite band comes to town. My favorite sports team's playing. Where am I going to get tickets from? And if I get tickets, how much are they? And what is the view of the stage or the playing surface going to be? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day you can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And I want to thank all of you for making this your first listen of the day. So a lot of questions around this year's team is, how is this team getting it done? No one expected this. I like to really drive this down like a nail that's sticking up out of the deck. I like to just pound it down, and then I take a nail set and just drive it below the surface, that I am loving this year's Caps team. And the biggest part why, proving the skeptics wrong. I love that. In your face. Only the Winnipeg Jets, with 45 points as I record this, have more points in the entire NHL. The Capitals have 44 points. That's good for first in the Eastern Conference, but even better, first place in the Metro. Now, there are teams in the mix. You take a look at the Devils, 43, right there But the Hurricanes, 39. Flyers, 32. The Flyers better than the New York Rangers. And the dumpster fire that's burning in New York, there was a lot of high hopes. A lot of people, including myself, picked them to be on the top of the Metro, kind of slipping away with only 31 points. I expect Peter Laviolette to be replaced this week. I think you can book that. But let's not go into the weeds there. Let's talk about what's working about this year's team. And it's just a really exciting thing for me to witness. So I'm going to say a major factor is their strategic approach to the game. The Capitals have really honed in on effective cycling across all three zones. And I think that this is not last year's team. And I'm not talking roster-wise. I'm talking systems. It's different and it's markedly better. And the proof, well, it's in the standings. It's in the wins and losses. They play with aggression and speed, constantly putting pressure on puck carriers in the defensive zone. They don't have any chance to get a foothold. The tenacious defense, what it does is it leads to turnovers, and they rapidly convert into fast breaks. And Capitals have some guys that really have some giddy up in their step. They're making the most of those opportunities. Once they enter the offensive zone, they maintain that intensity and just really keep driving it with defensemen actively jumping in on loose pucks to keep the attack alive. This is a really great. I'm going to go ahead and say I have not seen a Capitals team this good, and I can't tell you when. I mean, even 2018 had its flaws. This team, I'm going to say it again. That's could be the theme of this podcast is bulletproof. Is this year's team bulletproof? I think that'll actually be the thumbnail for this episode. But let's talk about communication. This is a multi-tiered success sandwich. One standout element of their game is how well the players communicate on the ice. For instance, when a defenseman pinches in, it's crucial for a forward to notice and provide support. This is what I'm talking about, that the systems are better than last year. The Caps have mastered this connection, making it incredibly challenging for their opponents to counteract their aggressiveness offensive play. When they're in the offensive zone, they're really thriving. And it's like blood in the water of a piranha tank that this team is just driving, and really something to witness. Their aggressive forechecking places forwards right in front of the net, giving them a huge edge. We saw that against the Sabres. That was huge. Take a look at, just watch the replay of the goals. It was guys up front. It was Tom Wilson up front. It was Dylan Strome skating in up front. That is what is successful. And they had a guest on the broadcast, and he said that's nothing new. They've been doing it for years, and if you're a good team, that's part of the success. It's not about getting goals from a long ways away. This is not Alex Ovechkin setting up from his office. It's not about that anymore. And I think what's a little bit refreshing, and cover your ears, Alex Ovechkin, but what's refreshing is that it's a bit of a different thing with this year's Capitals team, is they're not trying for such long-range shots. They're doing the things that are proven effective, driving the net, and it really showcases their dedication to battling through those tough areas. So let's dive into scoring. It's truly impressive. This season, the Caps have excelled in both mid-range and high-danger scoring areas. That's what I'm talking about. Even more staggering, they've netted 51 goals from high-danger areas. This team, you take a look at it, it's like, what did they do? It's, it's the same coaching staff. It's new players, but I think that, maybe the systems were there all along, and it just wasn't the Capitals executing them last year, but quite a stunning season. That means a whopping 89 of their 115 goals have come from within just 15 feet of the goal. There it is. That's your stats. This focused scoring emphasizes the effectiveness of their offensive game plan. So that, like I say, this team is doing so well defensively, offensively, LT and Charlie in net, killing it. That I'm really excited how this season plays out. And just this could almost be like I don't want to get ahead of myself and say that they're going to win a Stanley Cup, but what I'm saying, at a minimum, is this team is built to make a deep push. I really, really do believe it. And as a Capitals fan, it's kind of fun to sit back and just watch it all unfold. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about what is ahead. The team is playing so great right now. What lies ahead? I'll discuss next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And there is a lot of football that's played on any given Sunday, Monday, or Thursday. And sometimes now I even hear Saturday might get entered into the mix. And some of those games you're going to be into, and some of them if you're not. So open up the FanDuel app and put a little bit of money on the game. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's fanduel.com. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or you're paying for twice? That's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. And listen, guys, it is Christmas time right around the corner. There's a lot of money that's spent on presents, not to mention that, if you live in a climate where it's cold, your heating system crashes, your car breaks down, why not save a little bit of money and, close out some of those subscriptions and have some money in the bank? Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day talking about what is next for this team as they continue to keep rolling and keep winning. Well, let's talk about games in particular. We know that we have Dallas tomorrow, today, Monday evening, depending on when you're watching or listening to this. Then they will take on the Blackhawks on Tuesday and Friday against the Hurricanes. And what kind of games and what kind of pushback are these teams going to have? Well, if we look here briefly at the standings, the Stars are in third place in the Central. So I think that could present some challenges for the Caps, that is for sure. And as we take a look at the other teams in the mix, I think that it is going to be a little bit easier. But like I said, you never want to underestimate your opponent. You take a look at the Blackhawks near the bottom, second to last place in the Central. Again, we don't want to fall into a trap game. We just want to keep concentrating on winning big games. But what lies ahead for this team other than the games ahead? Well, Alex Ovechkin, we know, is brewing and will likely return soon. Just imagine how potent their offensive strategy will become. Now, this is a two-sided coin. I'm going to be honest with you, that this team has learned to play so well in his absence. I almost wonder if having Ovechkin, this is going to sound funny, is going to screw up the chemistry a little bit, that things are so finely tuned right now that when you put Alex Ovechkin back in the mix, it's the tough question is who's going to come out of the lineup. But I don't want to go down a negative rabbit hole. I'm just going to say that on paper, the team is going to be markedly better. But one other hero in all of this as well is Logan Thompson, who has been rock solid in goal this year. And what do we have to look forward to? I do expect that he is the netminder that is going to get the extension for the Capitals. That's what, it was earlier in the season. I said, I don't want to pick favorites, and not to disparage Charlie. He's done a really good job. But if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to say it's Logan. And, I don't see both of them getting extensions. Hey, stranger things have happened, but I just don't think that they would be able to afford that. Logan Thompson's been rock solid in his first year with the Caps. He's racked up 12 wins with only one loss and 2 overtime losses, boasting a goals against average of 2.45 and a 913 save percentage. Again, there's a lot of things that could change my mind. Injury, say he gets cold for some reason, but all things considered, really good. Logan Thompson has been lights out, and Alex Ovechkin at some point will make his return to this team. But what's ahead? You take a look at it, just the schedule is just this team plays so well on the road. And I think that, what it's behind, what's behind them playing. I get asked that question quite often is why do you think the team is playing so well on the road? And I would never say that they're distracted when they're at home. But what I'm going to say is that the players have other responsibilities at home. Some of the players have wives, girlfriends, children, those kind of things that maybe their mind isn't 100% engaged in hockey. When they're on the road, they're in a hotel, they have no other things, taking their time up. They can just go to the rink, they can go to the morning skate, they can take a nap, they can show up early, and it's just mind on the prize winning hockey games. And it's interesting. It kind of defies stats in a lot of ways. If you think about it, that generally speaking, teams play better at home. But this year, this team is killing it on the road. But as we've seen here as of late as well, they're kind of picking it up at home as well. Like I said, bulletproof. That's what I'm going to dub this year's Capitals team right now in December is bulletproof. If I had to put a caveat or an asterisk next to any of that, I would say barring any major injuries. But other than that, this team is built to win. And the rest of the NHL, take notice, this team is coming for you. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.